everyone. Today is going to be all about co-regulation. So our challenge question is a guide to learning is how can I co-regulate with a student in amygdala hijack? This stage is all about accessing prior knowledge, see what you maybe already know about the topic. Encourage you to take a minute to write everything down. Also encourage some guesses or predictions. Ready, set, go. Let's finish up that last thought. So before we jump into what we can do to co-regulate with our students, it's important for us to really understand what amygdala hijack is and what are some of the signs that we can look for so that we can respond in an effective way. Amygdala hijack basically means the students are in their emotional brains. They're in that fight, flight, freeze, fawn reaction, kind of in survival mode, or it feels to them like they're in survival mode. And they're not accessing their logical, rational parts of their brains. So one of the things we can look for is their voice tone, especially if a student's in that fight reaction. Their voice tone might become more aggressive. They're yelling at you. They're yelling at another student. The other side of that too, it could be a student goes completely silent. They might be in that freeze reaction where they're not responding to you at all. So again, just being mindful of voice tone can be very telling. Clenched fist, again, if that student's in fight mode, they feel like they needed to defend themselves. Their fist might get clenched. Heavy breathing. So this isn't necessarily them taking deep breaths to try to calm themselves. It's more of the almost like the panting reaction. Ignoring directions kind of goes back to what I just said with voice tone. They might seem like they're zoned out. They're kind of in their own world. They're not showing that they're showing signs that they're listening to us. That might be showing that they're stuck in their emotional brains at that point in time. Fixation. I've worked with a lot of kids, especially when they're amygdala hijack, they get really fixated on the thing, usually what's causing their heavier emotions. They might bring up often, so-and-so said this to me, or maybe if it's an academic assignment, they kind of really expressing their frustrations about it. Even if the activities transition to something completely different, if they're continuing to bring that up, that might be a sign that they're still in that emotional part of their brain and not necessarily thinking logically of what the activity is currently about. Pupils get dilated beyond more than normal. And with this, I've seen kids in highly escalated states where their eyes almost look like they're glazed over. So just as we're talking to the kids or watching the kids, we can kind of look to their eyes and see what they're telling us. Increased energy, maybe they get a little fidgety, maybe they get up out of their seat and are wandering around the classroom, maybe they even run out of the classroom, that flight reaction that they might be showing. So again, if a student's showing this in a way, that could be maybe a sign that amygdala hijack's going on in their brains. And lastly, increased body temperature. We can't necessarily look and see that. We can look to see if they're maybe sweating more than normal. I've also had kids be able to verbally tell me, I'm feeling really hot right now. That's kind of the adrenaline pumping through their body. And so again, these signs collectively, we can start being more mindful of them as we look into, especially with a student maybe showing a negative behavior, they might be communicating something to us without verbally telling us. So then we can use it to respond in an appropriate manner. So co-regulation, steps for co-regulation. Co-regulation is basically the students don't have the self-regulation skills to do independently by themselves. So we're going to do it with them to build those skills. And like I've said in previous videos, the more proactive we can be to prevent these situations from happening, because they can get pretty escalated and pretty emotionally charged and increase the stress, the better off we're going to be, the better off our students are going to be, the better off our classrooms are going to be. So again, creating that safe and consistent environment and other things that we can do that I've suggested in previous videos, that's going to be the better off we're going to be. Like I said, sometimes life happens though. Something maybe happened at home, something maybe happened in the bus where they're already in amygdala hijack by the time they get to us. So these are some effective things that we can do to help them and support their growth and being able to navigate some of these tougher situations. So first thing I do, this kind of uses the sound discipline framework. we want to connect with the student. We acknowledge that they're a person going through something, and we want to make sure that we are maintaining and strengthening the relationship that we have with them. Because again, we jump right in like, hey, don't say it, don't talk right now, or you shouldn't be doing this. If they're already in amygdala hijack, that might even trigger them even more and escalate them even further. So if we can kind of soften that a little bit by just connecting them with them first off. So maybe a kid's running around the classroom, be something like, hey, you're really fast. Or maybe they're talking to a classmate during an independent work time. Hey, I noticed that you're trying to make friends. And so again, it starts it off in a way of, I'm not accusing you of something, but it's still showing that I'm paying attention to what's going on. Once we connect, this next step is really important. We need a model for the student, what self-regulation looks like. Because again, these students are likely don't have the skills to do it independently yet. So we're going to use ourselves to teach that. And a way I like to do it is just basically say, I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling this emotion right now. What can I do to help calm myself? What this does is it shows the student this is what self-regulation looks like I said. It gives the students a sense of control. I found a lot of kids that are in the amygdala hijack, they're seeking some kind of control. So this gives them that opportunity to make a choice. And also, too, it puts them in the teacher role where they're teaching us now how to self-regulate, which is going to help emphasize their learning and what they already know and what we can teach them along the way. So if a student says, hey, you could try coloring, or you could try taking deep breaths, I'm going to do that activity right in front of them to show what it looks like. And by doing that, also I'm going to communicate, oh, I'm feeling calmer, or I'm going to really verbally tell what I'm feeling so then the student can see the effect of that. So by doing that too, hopefully the student will be more receptive to do the activity with you. They've suggested it. They're seeing some positive benefits from it. It's also using the mirror neurons to help further that connection that you have with them. And so encourage the student to join in, like, hey, you know what, I'm feeling better by drawing. Do you want to do this with me? Or, I just felt really good by taking 5 huge deep breaths. Do you want to do 5 deep breaths with me? So begin by starting it like we did. The student's going to be more receptive to participating with you and practicing those self-regulation skills. Once we start to notice that the student's calming, it's kind of the opposite of what the previous slide was. If their voice tone's softening, their breathing's kind of more under control, their fists are unclenched, they're not maybe moving around as much, those can be signs that their bodies and brains are calming down. And so what we want to do in this next stage is this where we can help the student reflect and help them think about the situation, think about what they were feeling, think about the effect they had on other people around them. Because this is an incredibly important part of this whole process is they got to learn from these situations, because even if they lost control, there was still an effect they had on people. And so they need to really start to think about, okay, I felt this emotion, I handled this way. And then that's what we can do with that is try to redirect them. Well, how else could we have handled that in a safer or a more kind way or more respectful way? In this stage, I love to just use questions, kind of open-ended questions, and get the kids thinking. So it's not me saying, hey, you need to take deep breaths next time, or you need to do this, but building those reflection skills in our students are going to benefit them greatly. Once we feel like the reflection stage has been productive, if they did harm somebody else, whether physically or emotionally, we want to help them think about ways they can repair and build those relationship skills, because that does happen. And so how are they going to handle it? And this is kind of the accountability piece where we're not creating a consequence of, oh, you just cussed at that person, you're going to have to do this. It's really helping them reflect on the natural consequences of the situation. Hey, you just said something mean to somebody else. Do you think they're going to want to be your friend further when you treat them like that? Hopefully they say no, and then the conversation can transition to, well, what can we do about it? How can we fix what's happened? Or if they broke something or whatever else. But they repair, this kind of wraps it all together so that it turns this moment that was maybe negative and flipping it so they can learn from it and grow from it. So hopefully they don't make the same mistake again. So reflecting, how can I co-regulate with a student in amygdala hijack? Kind of some of the stuff I went over today. I encourage you to take some time, 2 minutes, reflect on it. Ready, set, go. All right. So if you have any questions, by all means, reach out to me. I'd love to help clarify things or have you bounce ideas. We can collaborate on that. Also, attend the weekly sessions that I've set up. Wrap this whole thing up. Long-term potentiation. Think about one word or concept that I went over today that you can take with you for the rest of the day to think about and hopefully start applying in your practice. What you think about is what you bring about. As always, appreciate y'all taking your time to watch these. And again, by doing these things, I think it's going to benefit you, your class, your kids, our school. Thanks so much. Take care.